Hey, it's Aaron. I just rolled my ass out of bed about 5 minutes ago, and the very first thing that I seen on the news, as soon as I flipped on my little phone, was Hillary fucking Clinton. Again, she somehow crawled out from underneath the rock that she was living under. I'm fairly sure it was a rock. It might have been a rock inside of a swamp, probably inside of a slum. I imagine it was surrounded by a bunch of like lizards and other just, creepy crawly creatures, millipedes and fucking cockroaches and shit. And she crawled out from underneath there for just long enough so she could continue to slam Bernie Sanders. It wasn't enough that she did everything that she possibly could to cheat him out of the general election in 2016. It wasn't enough that Bernie Sanders, out of the goodness of his heart, campaigned harder for Hillary Clinton than pretty much any other candidate ever has campaigned for any other candidate in the history of the United States. I think he went to like 40 different events. He was going to like dozens of events every single day just to campaign for Hillary Clinton. It wasn't good enough that he did all of those things for her, because now, of course, she's coming out in full force along with the rest of the mainstream media and just doing this massive smear job campaign against Bernie Sanders because, well, that's the way that these establishment motherfuckers like to do things. If you didn't know anything about the establishment, you see, the reason why, like, the way that the establishment works here is basically they want to keep control and power of everything, and any little sign that they might lose a little bit of their control, a little bit of that power, means that they have to go full fucking scorched earth on that thing. And Bernie Sanders happens to be that little teeny tiny thing that might shake things up a little bit for them, so they're doing absolutely everything in their power to make sure that Bernie Sanders does not win the presidency. And they're doing that through the most ridiculous of smears. Now, obviously, like I've said in other videos, I'll leave a link to it in the description box below, just earlier this week, a couple of days ago, just chill, I just woke up. Anyway, Elizabeth Warren came out along with CNN holding hands, skipping down the street, making massive smears against Bernie Sanders, saying that he's a sexist and that he didn't think that a woman could be president. And now, just a couple of days later, Bernie Sanders, boom, shot right the fuck through the roof in the polls, and now that he's leading, everybody and their fucking dog wants to make sure that they destroy Bernie Sanders from ever getting the presidency. So, of course, the usual suspects start pulling themselves out from the fucking mud, and that's where we get Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton said something along the lines of that nobody in Washington likes Bernie Sanders. He's never been able to work with anybody, and he can't get anything done. And she said that in an interview a little while back, and it was re-asked of her again recently if she still felt the same way, and she was like, yeah, absolutely, I feel the same way. Fuck Bernie Sanders. So, oh my God, it's one of those, it's going to be one of those days, man. But, yeah, so they're smearing the hell out of America's dad, Bernie Sanders. They're smearing the hell out of him, and that's because Bernie Sanders actually represents at least the smallest modicum of change. He's not the best. He's not going to do the best. He's probably not even the furthest left candidate that exists in the first world, but he certainly is in the United States. And even though he's not a communist, he's not an actual democratic socialist, he's a social democrat. Even though he's not post-capitalist, even though he doesn't necessarily want to see this entire broken system torn down and replaced by something that actually works, he does signify a massive change, a massive shift within the demographics, within the population of the United States. And it signifies that people really want something different. Back in 2016, they wanted something different then too, and that's what brought everybody Trump, right? It was an anti-establishment mentality. It was all of these different things that brought Trump into the forefront. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people are realizing at this point that they made a mistake, but they're definitely not going to just go ahead and vote for whatever it is, the centrist candidate, the middle of the road candidate, the establishment motherfucker candidate. They're not going to do that. It's extremely unlikely. What's more likely is people are going to come out en masse voting for the person that they think is going to make the most difference in the system. And so far, that has been and always has been Bernie Sanders. So that's all I want to talk about this morning. Frustrating morning. I need to go have a coffee. If Hillary Clinton is watching, which, by the way, I know she's watching because she watches every one of my videos. So she's a big fan of the show, friend of the show, actually. And if Hillary Clinton is watching, I just want to leave you this one special, very personal message. Go fuck yourself. I almost forgot to mention something, and it's very important. Kind of the whole reason why I made the video in the first place. Don't at me. Come on. I do my best. Anyway, really, the whole reason why I wanted to talk about this is because Hillary Clinton is continuing the whole smear campaign that was started by Elizabeth Warren, saying that Bernie Sanders is a massive sexist. Now, this whole thing was started, of course, in 2016 by Hillary Clinton, saying all of the things that she was saying, Bernie bros and all of this stuff, creating all of this narrative that somehow Bernie Sanders is somehow this horrible, terrible person. And she's continuing this narrative, of course, and I think that's really part of why Elizabeth Warren was going so hard on the Bernie Sanders is a sexist, he doesn't think women can win the presidency narrative, because she talked to Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton and her fucking aides and everybody in the Democratic Party is trying to just, push Hillary Clinton to go down this I'm the one woman avenue. And even though it might not make Elizabeth Warren go any further in the polls, it can drag Bernie back, or at least they think it can, though Hillary Clinton and her entire campaign is just full of probably the most lost individuals you've ever seen. And so I just want to quickly read a quote from Hillary Clinton from that interview that kind of goes along that same narrative, and it goes something like this. And I really hope people are paying attention to that, because it should be worrisome that he has permitted this culture. Not only permitted, he seems to really be very much supporting it. And I don't think that we want to go down that road again, where you campaign by insult and attack. And maybe you try to get some distance from it. But you either don't know what your campaign and supporters are doing, or you're just giving them a wink and they go and attack Kamala or Warren. It's a pattern that I think people should really take into account when they make their decision. And of course, this comes from an interview that has to do with a documentary that was following Hillary Clinton along her campaign back in 2016. I believe it was something along those lines. And it just so happens that the documentary comes out just a month or two before people finish doing their voting to find out who the Democratic nominee is. So, isn't that interesting? Isn't that just fucking interesting how it almost seems as though the Democrats are more willing to lose with a centrist than they would be to win with a leftist. But we all knew that was going to happen anyway. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.